every design thinking process, no matter what the variation is, start from the problem space research and then we move towards the solution space.
Welcome back, listener, to another exciting episode. In this episode, we will be discussing about the design thinking process, how we can design big applications, and what is the thinking required behind it, so that we can give optimal user journey for all the clients and all the stakeholders and all the people who are using that particular platform. And to discuss this topic in detail, we have invited a design expert with us today. And Asad, how are you? And kindly introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm good, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me on this podcast. I'll just start with a brief introduction. As you said, my
Sure.
name is Asad. I am a co-founder in an AI and product development consultancy known as ByteCorp. And what
Okay.
we do is we partner up with technical founders and help them build their products from end to end. And we have helped like multiple founders from the Silicon Valley and beyond to raise multiple million in funds, in seed fundings and beyond. And yeah, so I would say that we have been quite successful in that. So the consultancy started back in 2019 and it has been what I think like 4.5 years. Yeah, that's been going fine. Alhamdulillah.
So, Asad, tell us about your experience specific to design, like what you are up to, like in design industry, like what you have done in the previous years.
All right. So just like a brief background, I started off as a front end developer, and during that, I kind of found out my calling in the sense that most of the impact that I'm making is coming from a designer who's giving me his design files and who is designing the whole experience and the roadmap of how the things are going to be. So then I pivoted towards design full time, started studying it, pursued multiple specializations in UX design, and then I was outsourced to a Web3 startup known as Anmol for as a lead on on their product experience,
Okay.
and we helped them raise $1 million in seed. And in that moment, I kind of understood, okay, this is where most of my impact relies on, and I think this is where I can do much good. And I think even in the recent past year and a half, we have been
Mm.
working with multiple startups. There was one automobile company. We have helped them raise upwards of $5 million, and there were other small startups who have raised some funding because of us. So I have been full time involved in designing those products.
Okay. So, can you explain, like, because for our listener, like,
Yeah,
what is the design thinking process? Like, if, for instance, I am the automobile owner, I have like two, three
yeah,
shops, and I come up to you and I say, Rasad, like, I need like a crazy design. And for a person like it can be like a person, a layman who does not know much about like websites and all that. It is user friendly for them as well. And
yeah.
so what is the starting process, like, can you guide me?
Yeah, sure thing, sure thing. So every design thinking process, no matter what the variation is, start from the problem space research and then we move towards the solution space. So
Okay.
how it goes like it's that we first diverge towards the problem and we are taking all the input that we can. So if let me think of an example. Yeah. So if this automobile company says that there's a lot of manual paperwork that we do and we want to get rid of this. So
Okay.
try and ask them more questions around it, that why would you want to zero in on this? And then just as an example, we find out, okay, they just want to do it so they can save a huge amount of time. And
Yeah.
then if we keep drilling down to it, we then realize, okay, this is just this aspect of paperwork. If we digitize it, then there is a major impact of uh, time getting remaining for them to focus on other things. And then we move towards the solution space as to what we can design for only that purpose. And if we digitize that, the problem is solved.
Yeah.
Does that make? Yeah,
Yeah, that is good. Like, it has like basically two phases. First, you understand the manual process and how things work, and
yeah,
once you understand the vision of the particular customer, like why they want to digitize it or why they want that particular feature, then you guys start with the solutioning of it, like how we guys can solution it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Just in simple words, we keep zeroing in on the problem unless we see it's simple enough to solve. Yeah.
Sure. And you have mentioned that these companies, some of these companies, they have like get some fundings as well. So what's the relation with that? Like, can you explain?
Yeah, sure thing. So whenever we get involved as a consultancy, so the understanding is like, so they have this limited amount of funds that they're going to utilize to build this product, and we are going to help them, as it always starts with the design phase, or in better yet, the discovery phase of the problem.
Okay.
And after that, we come up with the main problem definition. So, okay, this is the problem that you're trying to solve. We ideate on it. We keep building variations. We test it with their target audience, and the target audience is something that they have to provide. Okay, this is why I'm. This is the problem, and this is the audience that I'm building it for. We
Okay.
gi- we get them on call. We test it with them, and then we build the MVP in a bare minimum MVP, in a sort of way that they can, okay, take this, and then they can start pitching it to the investors, and then they,
Okay. Okay.
some of
Okay.
them are usually successful in raising funds like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I get it. I get it. Because nowadays, like, it's all about MVP. Previously, I remember like people, clients, and even like a lot of people, like, majority of them, come up to you and say, like, I need this big giant system. I need
Yeah.
reporting. I need like this kind of a design. I need admin portal, client portals, and all that. Like, it used to be like a huge system. It takes like years to basically, it takes first like few months to actually create design of it, create business
Yeah.
flows, and then develop it, testing. And now, like, I see like a lot of the industry is pivoting towards MVP approach. More, a lot of people are like building SaaS platforms, and AI is also very in. Like, I see like in
Yeah.
today's market, like every product I see, every new product, there is like some AI aspect involved. Like, either it is Chat GPT API, or like, more about it. So can you tell like any
Yeah,
exciting
sure.
AI related
Sure.
product like, you have designed, or like you guys did plan and make it like into a successful MVP?
So usually you're definitely right that there is this glorified inclination towards AI, that they have to do something in it, so it becomes a better product to pitch in front of the investors, because they're this AI boom, and being 100% transparent. So we do find some aspect of any some aspect of AI involved in the product that we can utilize. But in any product, the AI part can't be involved just from day one. Like in most of the products that we have worked in, there are products which are totally AI based,
Okay.
but in my experience, we need to collect the data for it first to come up with something that, okay, which we can later utilize to go with that. And the point that you mentioned about building, now the industry being more focused towards coming up with MVPs, that
Yeah.
is something that I definitely agree on, because now these processes are more outcome based, and they need to focus on what they're going to ship. And incidents have happened where clients have, in meetings with us, they have stated that they want the admin panel and everything, and each
Yeah.
and every nitty of a product that is not usually uh, centered around the problem that they're trying to solve. But then it gets easier when we tell them the whole timeline of what they are envisioning and the cost behind it, and then they get and then it gets easier. Okay, like, okay, we can't invest that much in it, so what do you suggest, how much we can cut down? And then they start like a bottom up approach, so they can cut down enough till it becomes an MVP, and then it gets easier to build it.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. And for any listener who is listening, and you guys have any idea in your mind that you're thinking like this is like crazy idea, I would say like Asad is like the right person. You can contact him on LinkedIn as well. I will provide your LinkedIn link in my description, so that you can discuss with him. He's like the expert in designing flows and stuff, and you guys like work out and you guys build something crazy. So yeah, and the next
That'd be
is,
amazing.
yeah, and the
Mm.
next thing is like, what are like, if we go in more detail regarding like the designing principle, because whatever you do, whatever product you build, it starts from designing it, and then
Yeah.
obviously the development part and testing and all that. So, what are the key principles that we have to focus on in design thinking process?
So, like, I won't call them principles per se, but like what I have learned in my experience is that we learn a lot of things when we are studying design, even the design thinking process. So there's when we empathize, then we define, then we ideate, then we test, then we then we ship it. So but it is really different in the real world.
Okay.
So in the real world, if you just try to follow the process just for the sake of the process, it is never going to work. I mean, I think 90% of the time it's not going to work because the client won't have the capacity for it. You won't have the resources to test everything. You won't have the time, at least. And soon as an investor gets involved, you don't have the time at all to be this flexible about everything.
Yeah.
So, and another definition, like you have to be flexible about the process. So
Yeah.
if a client needs something like a process that and you have seen in other products that is consistent, then you don't have to like go all in on the research. You come up with interviews and things. You know how it's done. So you have to at least start the low fidelity or say like wireframe it, get it reviewed with the client, and then mock it up to show it to the users. And it has to be very quick. So even a lot of the designers, junior designers which I have spoken to, complain about this, that we don't get the capacity to do what we want to. And we want to do wireframe, we want to test it on the wireframe, and then we want to build the mockups. And then on what they fail to realize is that the UX value loop,
Yeah.
as much as it's focused on the users, and we keep saying the user centered, there as much as it's focused on the users, it has to be focused on the business as well, because that's where the food chain is coming from. So if you can't generate value for the business,
Yeah.
they won't be able to invest likewise to generate value for the users. And it has to be like both ways. It just can't be heavier on one side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also believe that because I have also worked with like different SaaS platforms, and we raised some funding from UK, and a lot of them are UK based. So I also
Oh,
remember like, we used to get like some requirements. We can add this particular screen, and on the same day, we used like designers are like preparing like Figma files. Like
yeah.
instantly, we get the Figma, we show the to the client, and client say okay, okay, and it's not like the whole process build, and then after 2 days we show it to client. It's like instant in MVP.
Yeah.
We get on a call with client, and maybe there are changes going on, and client is telling you, change the font, change this thing, like move a little bit down, and like maybe like the whole team is on the call, all the senior member, they're checking it out, discussing. The design is final. After like 1 day or 2 day, that particular feature is developed into the system. So but like there's another aspect of it as well. Like if you're working with like a big company who are settled, who have like funds, or the product is generating like good revenue, in that like I have personally seen as well that they are following the process, because as you said, like it is like very practical thing that you said. Like obviously if it is like MVP and you guys are launching in the market, and
Yeah.
obviously at
Exactly.
that time you also have to keep in mind like we have the runway for like 7 months. So
Yeah.
whatever we have to finish the development in like 5 months, the next 2 months we will like market it, and then we will pitch it to investors, and we will show them the user retention and all that. So it's you have to keep all of that in mind, like the runway, and how in that runway that your investor or client have, how you have to build everything and like get investors. So yeah, that is I would say like for someone who is like thinking about like designing or starting their own product, it's very helpful for them just to get their head clear.
So there is just one more point that I would love to mention here, because there is also this other side of the story, which you mentioned beautifully, that there are companies who are now well settled, who have the investment, who have the runway to do the right things, and doing them the right way.
Yeah.
But I've also experienced that with designers, this becomes a habit when they're in a very fast-paced environment. So now they're in the habit of not testing anything at all, or not doing any research and anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a middle way. There is a fine line of things which about how, okay, how these are how this experience will perform with any expert user. But then there's a whole like plethora of ways that it can go when you are involved in an uncharted territory. So whenever you have the capacity, and then you think this is the time that we need to test it, and you're going to test it, and you're going to involve the users earlier on to save the cost, because if it's built, And then there's the user feedback that, okay, no, this is very, this was very obvious that, you have to move it there, we need this feature this way, or it should be the other way around. Then you would have to, not just, you would have to revamp it a little bit, but then it will have to, there's that development cost involved with it again. There's going to be pushed into that pipeline, and the developers will work on it again. But this is something that it's the designer responsibility to save that cost and ask the organization. And a big part of a designer's role is to make the stakeholder understand about the design decisions. And if they're failing to do that, then this needs working on. And so they need to make them realize with stories, with actual metrics, with numbers, that, okay, this is how we can save this amount of money if we do this right now. And I think any reasonable stakeholder is going to act upon it, because look, they need to save money, or
Yeah.
they need to make it.
Yeah. And like, can you tell us about, like, for instance, the product, the MVP is like, let's say in the market, it is doing good. There are like some X amount of users started using it. Some investor also showing interest and things are going good. And then you have to take the user feedback that
Yeah.
this particular platform, for instance, you guys, invented some sort of chat GPT platform, and you guys wanted to know like how the customer are like liking it or not. So how you guys get that metrics? Like, what are the different ways to get the customer feedback and improve?
There are a couple of ways to do it. So if you have a hypothesis, see, so if you think, for example, if you have this hypothesis, okay, feature X will perform better if it's Y way.
Okay.
If you have the hypothesis, then you can come up with a survey, and then you can get some of the users, you can email some of the users, and be very, very concise with the question that you want to ask, because they don't have the time to, go. You must have seen some NPS surveys which go like, um not often, very often, likely, very likely, not likely at all, and they're like a 5 to 6 circles which you can choose from. So they can be cut down into two choices: yes or no. You like
Yeah.
it or you don't like it,
Yeah.
and everything in between is answered between it. And even if you can drill down into one question, in this way, surveys are very successful.
Yeah.
If you are throwing a survey out in the dark and you are asking everything, okay, what do you think if you do it this way, and if it's that way? See, we never ask the users for solution.
Yeah.
We ask them for feedback. So
Yeah.
we ask them what the problem is, but they have the tendency to tell them, okay, this is a problem and I think you should do it to solve it.
Yeah.
But you cannot act upon it, because if you ask seven of them, there are going to be seven probable solutions. It's your job to come up with the solution that tackles all of it. So you get the feedback to understand the problem, not the solution. You need to come up with the solution. So this is one way. So
Okay.
surveys work when you have the hypothesis for it. And if it's a little broader than that, then you can conduct interviews, you can ask some open-ended questions, you need to focus on their expressions, you need to focus on, okay, where they're having difficulty, not just where they are saying that they are having difficulty, where they're actually having difficulty. So what they say and what they do a lot of times have a lot of different. So
Yeah.
these, I think, these are a couple of ways that you can, get right on the track where you get better feedback in to improve the product.
Yeah, because I've also experienced it. Like in a lot of platforms, like they're asking, some of them it is very easy, as you mentioned, like yes, no. Some of them they're like lengthy forms, and I
Yeah,
also remember
yeah.
if there's like a lengthy form, if you are busy, you're like, okay, shit, man, like I don't have time for it, and you'll press on cancel, or like I will do it later sometime, or maybe not, And then also like I have been involved in like with Sentry recently, like someone from Sentry team, they messaged me like, yeah, they need to get the user feedback and stuff, and in return they will do this X favor for me. And I was like, okay. Then they conducted like a whole series of like you can say interviews, and it was not just
Yeah.
me. So it was like I worked in basically a Norwegian company. We are developing a fintech application for them. So we also involved like I involved like other team members as well, like the app developer, the front end, and I basically handle the whole cloud and the solutioning part. So, and then they are asking, what are the metrics that the app guy needs, the back end, front end. And it was like a long meeting. It was very helpful for us as well, because
Yeah.
they are obviously getting the feedback from the right person, and then they
Yeah.
have multiple meetings, they're giving us the feedback, we are implementing it, then they're again getting the feedback. And then in that particular, you can say like 5 6 meetings, we also added like a lot of things into our platform, and it was not planned, like it was like all of the sudden, and then the client loved it, and client was like, there is like a lot of like, it is like a monitoring platform and logging. So yeah, so it can be a good case. And I always like, giving feedback or like having quick calls with companies, because nowadays like a lot of them are emailing you for a quick like 5 10 minutes chat regarding the quick feedback of the new X feature they have developed. So yeah, it is good.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And then I would just say that, see, a successful product for me is not a milestone. It's a process, and a lot of it depends on learning the right ways to gather feedback.
Yeah, you're right. And can you tell us, like, because you guys, what you are doing, it is like a very creative thing. It is not like, and sometimes in development, you guys can just, open your laptop, that you have to build this thing. So there is like some technical aspect involved, like, but not much of creativity. If I be honest, maybe like a lot of back end front end developers might not like me saying this. I am also have like this full stack development, but like, but if you're developing a design, even if you are creating a WordPress website, like you have to think differently. When you're
Yeah.
creating backend application, just have to, this is the user data, you will just save in the database. There can be other difficult things, like, but it is user, and users are not seeing it. You have a data mart, or you have like Snowflake or data migration, a lot of complex things going on the backend side. But when you're working on the design side, obviously directly client is seeing that part. So
Yeah.
it is, how do you guys make sure that all your team, like if you have like 5 6 members, all of them are creative and making something, unique or new or intriguing for the clients, rather than just, making something very basic and boring?
So, I would just say that, like, there shouldn't be any gatekeeping involved. Like, design is what design is, a probable solution to any given problem, and a design led approach is not just, I would say, it's not just for a designer. It can be for a developer, a tester, a manager, or anyone in a team, where they can sit and say, okay, this is the problem that I have at hand. Maybe it's how to manage this better, or so how to manage this sprint better, or to how to test this better, or how to develop this better. So they can just take a moment and sit, think upon it, again diverge, and so how many ways I can do it, and then to converge into one possible solution. I guess if I go this way, then I can solve a problem. So
Right.
this is something that we try in our organization as well. That, okay, that even if it's a designer job, and we are not saying that the developers have to design.
Yeah,
Even you just have to go about it as a process which ensures better outcomes. And like a good example for that, in what we follow in our organization, is that there is no design handoff. So as in design, there is this, I would say, there is this misconception, okay, that you have to prepare a design handoff, you hand it off, and then your work is done. And
yeah,
I just say that it can't be like that ever. Get Then the design handoff is also a process, just not a deliverable. Okay, this is done.
yeah,
You have to collaborate with the developer to ensure that this is the experience that you want to ship, that this experience that you want to ship to the stakeholders. And this involves collaboration. This is not just possible in this way, that send the link of the Figma or any XYZ tool to the developer and say, okay, now it's your job to do whatever you want to do with that.
yeah,
Then this is a little bit of how we can, or anybody can contribute to being creative, for that matter.
yeah, you're right. I would say, like, because I have seen like some great design managers, and they used to, like sit with front end team, and when they're
They-
designing, they used to say, because sometimes there are some technical difficulties as well, that the
yeah,
Figma design is not, you cannot, front end guys are like, this is like very complex, we cannot do it. So if you have like this design guy with you, he can say, just like skip it, just add this, or like you can, this thing is not looking good, we can just change it. So your
yeah,
point is very valid, and it shows that you're experienced and you have done this work for quite some time. Because people think, just we get the design, we ship it to front end, our work
yeah,
is finished, and we work on some new feature, X feature. But it is not like that. It is the design person responsibility to again collaborate with front end team again back and forth and check how things are developing, and once it is ship out, then you can work on some new features.
and and just to add on top of that, I think some like multi-domain knowledge is necessary for a designer, because I really think that my front end development experience has helped me a lot in coming up with designs that are possible quick in development for the developer, because I know, okay, this is how it's going to be developed and this is the way they can approach it and they can come up with it in the timeline that we have.
Okay.
Otherwise, the designer can come up with a design that is approved, and when the developers see the prototype, it blows their head off. Like, okay, how do I develop this in the amount of time that I have? This is like impossible. So that's why being involved early on in the process, or at least having some kind of domain knowledge for front end development for a designer, can lead to things becoming easier for the whole team, all in all.
Yeah, this is like a very valid point. Like I would recommend, like if you are a graphic designer, UI UX expert, or like you want to become one, first
Yeah,
like understand that part, and then also
yeah,
like touch the basics of HTML, CSS, Bootstrap,
definitely.
that like you know that if a guy needs to like map that Adobe XD to or Figma to HTML, that person can use this tag and can do
Yeah,
it like using this. It's not like you are like, okay, I designed something, it's not my headache how that
yeah,
person map it on
exactly.
XML. So
Yeah,
if it is,
exactly.
then there's like a lot of problems and clash going on, because the front end developers I have seen in real life as well, like sometimes they get like very difficult like design, and they are, they are so stressed out and they're thinking like we cannot do this, so it's not a good situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, it shouldn't be. I just think it shouldn't be a designer's mentality to just do great work for their
Yeah,
own soul. Like, okay, this is something I did great, but the impact of it is not what it's supposed to be. And if it's not contributing to the success of the product, then what are you solving as a designer?
yeah, you're right. And can you tell the tools that a designer should learn, like for someone who is listening to this podcast and that person does not know much about like designing, but that person is inclined towards it, so what will be the roadmap that you should learn these 2 3 5 tools or do these certifications or course? So what is your take on that?
In theory, I think in design, theory has a lot of importance. So you know what you're going to do. That's like the base of it all, like the absolute base of it all, the first building block. And for theory, I would recommend that if you have, like there are some great channels on YouTube, and you can explore YouTube for all the free resources. But what I personally incline on in theory is the Interaction Design Foundation. The Interaction Design Foundation has been great in contributing to my theoretical knowledge.
Okay.
And for practical knowledge, you go anyway, you go to YouTube, you learn, I think, the essential tools if you want to just have a know-how of how to navigate your way around a certain tool.
Okay.
So you go to YouTube for that. You can, I think, Figma, which is
Okay.
very famously used in UX right now because of its easy collaboration. And
Okay.
for easier asset designing or vector designing, you can go for Illustrator. Just staying in the domain of experience design, not going towards graphic design something.
Okay.
And for testing, you can there are a lot of tools which I'm forgetting the name of one tool right at the top of my head. But there are, like, there's just one Google search away from very easy tool which you can utilize for A/B testing, or then the most, like, the direct way you can go toward is scheduling uh in a meeting or interview, and you can do it on even utilizing a Figma
Okay.
or Miro or any tool along that matter. So if you know your way around a Figma, Illustrator, and Figma and Illustrator for that matter, you can come up with assets and experiences which you can join together to build a good experience for that matter. But even for that, you would need the theoretical knowledge of design and its principles, so you would understand that why you are utilizing this tool and what your goal is
Yeah.
when you're using this tool. So a designer is definitely dependent on the tool they use, but like not entirely. So you must have seen when Figma recently got acquired by Adobe,
Yeah.
there was a lot of like statements in the design community. Okay, now it's going to get rubbish, or it's going to, it won't be that usable now. So then I have my mentor who told me that, okay, whatever is happening in a design tool is not going to limit your ability as a designer. And that's the kind of designer you should be. And I took it to heart and I was like, okay, whatever the tool is just for my ease. If
Yeah.
there's no tool, I can still design experience and I can still explain to the relevant people, relevant stakeholders, that, okay, this is how experience should be built. And I can and any designer should be able to do this without a tool. But there are tools, so you should use them either way.
So to, I would say, like, to sum up your what the tools and technology, I would say, like, to design, like, because you use some difficult terms like vectors. So for a layman,
Okay,
like,
good.
a vector basically means like you want, like, in the, you can say, application, if there's like a graphic design, you see like a
Yeah,
design on the
yeah,
laptop doing something, or a rocket flying. It can be a GIF, or it can be an just a static image. So we call it, like, design guys call it a vector image, and
yeah,
illustrator design that vector images. Uh,
exactly.
that's why I said didn't mention about Photoshop, because Photoshop is not that much good in doing this, like creating vector images, and there's like some limitations to it. It also have, I would say, ability to create things, like, but I also don't
Yeah.
like to design like that vector good quality vector images and export in SVG. So then I would recommend like Illustrator, and then whatever you have, like the small objects, small images in Adobe XD, and I would say Figma, both of them, like I would say, like, are
I
some.
think Adobe XD. I also think that even Adobe has removed it from their website now,
Oh,
and so yeah, because they have Figma now. It is theirs now, so
okay.
they can utilize it. Yeah,
No, because I remember back in the days, like, a lot of people used Adobe XD, and then
yeah,
a lot of people use Figma, and then, like, okay, it's merged now. That is great. And then, like, whatever vector images and small images you have, you put on Figma. You create like a template, sort of template for it. You have like 2 3 template images, and then you copy paste on every image. You can use some common you can say objects and things, and you design the whole experience. You can also add interactions to it, I think. I said you can verify
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
definitely. You definitely can. So just in like if we want to cut the whole story short, coming up with the assets, you can do it on Illustrator. Then you export those assets in Figma, and then you have the layout, whatever you are making as a in a desktop view or in a mobile view. You throw it on there. You're putting tests on Figma, you're prototyping on Figma, and then you can definitely like make them interact with each other to come up with a more live experience. You can definitely do that on Figma as well. Why I didn't mention Photoshop is just because it's more towards photo
Yeah.
editing. And if you need to edit photos even when you're designing a film, which sure, go ahead, use Photoshop. Why not? Yeah.
And Figma, like, I've seen, like, when the whole experience is designed in Figma, it's very good. Like, even if you have to pitch your product to someone, and you have
Mhm.
a the whole journey mapped on Figma, you can just give there's a link, right? You just give the link to the person. They will just click. It will show, user will come on
Yeah.
this page, go to this page. And it is very good. Like, even before, like, creating something, like writing HTML for it, like, the end customer can see the whole journey. Obviously, there is no like dynamic database is attached, but like the whole journey is like very easy, very smooth. Buttons are working. You can add interactions, and yeah, if clients like it, or there's a good feedback, then you can just start working on development. Because previously, I remember, like, 5 6 years ago, like 7 8 years ago, I remember, like, people used to build something, and this happened with me as well. We used to build something, it takes a lot of time, and then we give it to the client say, oh, this is not good. Then we again have to rebuild it, and then again send it. But now this part is, I would say, pretty much cut because of the design guys.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And even I think today the value of design prototypes is highly underrated. We raised funds for a stakeholder just using design prototypes. So they made the investor understand that, okay, this is how you're going to generate thousands of NFTs by 1 click, and
Oh,
this up. So when the visualization is there in front of them, that's all they're looking for. Okay, this is done, and then they ask question related to the technical side of it, and if you're able to answer it, it is enough for them.
yeah.
So the visualization is there, the explanation is there, then you can go ahead and start building, and then you have that kind of feedback.
Yeah, that is crazy. Just by design getting the
Yeah.
fun. That means like that design is like very good, and like the way you explained it. So hats off to you guys. And like uh
So,
the next thing I want to know, like, because like now everyone is talking about AI, even in the development aspect. I work a lot on like development, cloud, and all of that stuff. So we
amazing.
have like plugins, we have GitHub Copilot. You start typing the code, and it knows like what you are doing. You just press tab, it auto completes your function. You can just give the prompt at the top, just add a code comment. Like, it's a good approach. Whenever you write a function, just add a prompt, it will auto write the function for you, right?
Okay.
Similarly, cloud and stuff. So how things are evolving on design side, how tools like Figma or like other tools, even I don't know, are including AI, and how you can incorporate that in your design thinking process and all of that.
So Figma does offer plugins which we utilize heavily, and there is also a ChatGPT plugin, and there is also generative AI plugins, and there are also generative AI applications which can generate whole interfaces. But in my humble opinion, I can say that those generated interfaces are great, to coming up for coming up with a mood board, to coming up with the visualization of the application. But if you are working with a specialized target audience, I don't really know that how that AI built interface is going to perform, and you might have to do some additional effort in testing it. But yeah, but I think if I haven't utilized it right now, but if I'm going to utilize it, I'm definitely going to utilize this for getting inspiration onto how we can make it visually better and the experience more smoother.
Yeah, I get it. Like
There are
this.
a lot of things going on, definitely.
Yeah, this is also a good approach. Like, I from your answer I get to know, like, rather than using that as a final like design
Yes,
experience and everything, you just get it. Like, you are like starting to design something for like a new client. You just give the prompt or something, you get that design, you just kind of see like, okay, these two three things are good, these are not good, because usually AI response is like very generic. So maybe if you use it as it is, maybe there can be a case someone else is using it, and
exactly.
that can also be a case. So you just get the inspiration for it, and might use few things, and then just do that yourself. So yeah, that is important for someone who does not know about it and thinking about, okay, because now there are like a lot of ads, I would say, on social media, that just give one prompt and you can generate posters, you can generate this. A lot of people also ask me, for your YouTube thumbnails and your blog post thumbnails, do you use like this tool, do you use this AI tool? And there's a lot of talk. I tell them, like I said, like I've used a lot of them, but like none of them work for me. They're like the images that what I want and what they give me, there's like a huge difference. So yeah, I think it is still like we're still like a bit early to talk about this. Like after 2 3 years, maybe like things are different.
Definitely. Like I'm really hopeful for it. But until then, we can use a tool in its capacity of being a tool only, not a whole person who can do that exact job for you. And the tool is supposed to just help you complete that job, and you can definitely utilize any of the AI tools out there to make your job easier.
Yeah. And what do you see about like the future of this design industry, where it is going? It is booming, or like it's going down, or like what's the future of it?
Yeah, I would say that definitely you have called me an expert on this podcast a lot of time, but really don't consider myself an expert at all. I still have to learn a lot. I mean, it's all thanks to my mentors that I have excelled in this. But if I see it going is in a direction where most of the designers will be focused on gen coming up ways to generate value for the business and researching along the side, and then the visual coming up with the visual side of things might not be as difficult anymore. As we suggest in things that the generative or in coming up with interfaces which can generate the experience utilizing the certain set of requirements and research that you have. So if it has that kind of data, then it might be able to do a better job in than you in the near future.
Yeah, you're right. Like I think like in the future, like right now as well, like it has evolved a lot. Like previously it was just about like creating design. Now again, like people started creating the UX. Previously there was no UX aspect. Like I remember like just images, images, images. Then like the UX added this
Yeah.
thing started in the market. Now you're also right. Like now it is all about, understanding different businesses, how different businesses work, how SaaS platform work, how like corporate businesses work, how
Yep.
automation work, and stuff. If you have that knowledge, like of like understanding of how like business work, how business actually generate money, how you
Yeah.
can incorporate your solution, like this is more of like I would say like designer job nowadays. Like you have to understand that and then create something, the whole experience based on that.
Yeah, I think a very like a radical change is possible in the way that we experience application or in the way that we use it, and definitely that would we would be looking forward, to a designer to come up with that and to think really out of the box to come up with something that everyone would say, okay, yeah, this is actually better in how do we interact with applications now. So yeah, I think that is definitely possible.
Yeah, that is good. And my last question is like, what is your advice for someone like, who wants to start their career in this design industry? I would say UI, UX, or like all of that. So, what is your final advice
So
for them?
what they should know is that the tool is only as good as the designer. So you should focus on your capability, on the knowledge you have as a designer and the ways to utilize this knowledge, and then the tool will be more useful for you.
Yeah, that is a great, I would say, thing that you have said, like great expression, I would say, because like it is not about the tool, it is about the designer, it is about your thoughts, what you are thinking, rather than relying on tool and thinking that tools are doing everything. So yeah, that brings us to the end of another exciting podcast. And in this podcast we discuss about like the design thinking process. We also discuss about like the MVP approach, SaaS platforms, and getting fundings, and even getting fundings before generating the platform, just on the design as well. This is crazy. And so yeah, it is like a very exciting episode. So thank you, Asad, for like joining in and sharing your expert insight on all the design thinking process and all of that. So yeah, it has been a great talk, I would say.
Thank you so much for having me here. It has been an absolute pleasure and more of an honor to be here. It was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.